Good evening and welcome to Chicago and the Democratic National Convention. On night one of this convention, we are about to witness something unprecedented in American history. A sitting president will turn over leadership of his party to his vice president to run in his place because his own supporters did not think that he could win the race. That is the keynote address tonight from Joe Biden. The race for president was upended by his decision to leave the race after weeks of stubbornness and refusal to see what the polls and his own supporters thought was clearly the case. Biden eventually decided that, in fact, he could not defeat Donald Trump, and he dropped his re-election bid, quickly backing Vice President Kamala Harris to succeed him. The party fell in line instantly. 99% of the Democratic delegates supported her in a virtual roll call vote earlier this month. We're going to spend time each day this week taking an in-depth look at Kamala Harris's policies and their potential impact on Coloradans' everyday lives. We did the same with Donald Trump's policies each night during the RNC, and we'll take the same approach with other candidates and issues between now and November. Because Kamala Harris is just now rolling out a number of her specific policy proposals, in addition to those, we'll be looking at the record of the Biden-Harris administration and the positions that she took as a presidential candidate in the 2020 cycle. We should say she's kept some of those positions and changed some others. This is Decision 2024, the stakes for Colorado. We begin our series tonight with Angeline McCall's look at Kamala Harris's record on immigration policy.
At the border, historically, the perception is that Democrats are more lenient and Republicans are more harsh when it comes to immigration policies.
So it's going to be a difficult time for immigration, I believe.
Arturo Jimenez is an immigration attorney. He says there are fewer options for his clients in today's immigration system.
So I believe that the immigration process has become much more restrictive, and we're just going to see more, both Democrats and Republicans, try to get in front of each other to be hard on immigrants and tough on the border. We're going to see a lot of rhetoric.
Rhetoric already playing out in an ad made by Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign.
As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades.
Immigration advocates say policies under the Biden-Harris administration have been more harsh and restrictive than under former President Trump, most recently with an executive order effectively shutting down the border and capping the number of crossings per day.
She's the second most powerful person in the United States right now. She is the vice president. We've seen what her policies have done. They've been an abject failure by any objective look at the data.
Throughout her campaign, Republicans have referred to Harris as Biden's, quote, border czar, claiming she has a hand in major border policy. But her role with the Biden administration has been to focus on the root causes of immigration from three Central American countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. The numbers from all three have gradually decreased under the Biden administration, although migration from other countries has outpaced those decreases. Republican State Representative Gabe Evans says a Harris presidency would lead to more immigrants crossing without authorization.
This is not the path forward when it comes to keeping Americans safe and actually doing something to solve the humanitarian crisis.
While Dems and Republicans can disagree on who's been harsher with their policies, Jimenez says, as an immigration lawyer, he knows legal pathways to residency or citizenship is a harder process now than before.
Both parties are going to become very restrictive and see who can outdo the other to secure the border. And that's the rhetoric now that I think both presidential candidates, congressional candidates, and all the way down the tickets, people are going to talk about who can secure the border better than the other.
As of today, Denver has supported more than 42,000 migrants at a cost of more than $72 million. And that's just mainly for immigrants coming from South America, not to mention the number of DACA recipients we have here in the state of Colorado, along with other longtime immigrants as well.
Yes, certainly the cost, the actual financial cost of the current immigration system in the U.S. is unquestionable in Colorado. And the question now before voters is how much of any of the blame for that to assign to Kamala Harris. Angeline McCall, thank you so much. You can see our entire series, Decision 2024, The Stakes for Colorado, on the next section of 9news.com. There you'll find the 5 in-depth reports that we already did on Donald Trump's policies during the Republican National Convention.
Hi there, I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team meteorologist Kathy Sabin tracking severe weather today. A couple of landspout tornadoes near Deer Trail and Prospect Valley. Scattered light showers moving off the foothills into Denver. This is where the severe weather will continue until 9 o'clock with a watch out east of Denver through 9 o'clock that may be extended out longer. Storms continue to migrate in from the southwest, producing 1 to 2 inch diameter hail, 3 to 4 inches of rain, and creating some flooding out there and also washing out some county roads. We're seeing a bit of a boundary outside of Colorado Springs up to Lyman. Heavy rainfall there. The latest wave of showers is just crossing Denver, moving northeast toward DIA, where there actually has been some ground delays and some ground stop issues out there because of these thunderstorms that we're tracking. Severe thunderstorm warnings, flash flood warnings, these extend up into Weld County as these storms track north and east, and they'll go for several hours. Storm Prediction Center has us in that outlook area for hail and damaging wind, even though temperatures have cooled back a little bit because of the rain and the cloud cover. Futurecast will show these storms extending out through 8:30 east of Denver and still quite strong, maintaining their strength and integrity. Moving out around 10 o'clock tonight, we get a warmer, drier day tomorrow with just isolated storms in the northern mountains, scattered storms over the southern foothills, and temperatures tomorrow, again, back in the low to mid 90s. We were 91 today. We're watching temperatures slide into the 70s in the next couple of hours. And if skies clear, don't forget it is that rare full blue supermoon tonight. We have a dry day tomorrow at 94, scattered storms Wednesday and Thursday. Temperatures near 90 for Friday and the weekend with lots of sunshine for the second half of this week.
The Quarry fire in Jefferson County has been knocked down for 2 weeks now, and the work is just beginning to restore the landscape of Deer Creek Canyon so it can recover. That fire near Kencarroll Valley burned 580 acres earlier this month, forced hundreds of people to evacuate out of their homes. The rain really helped the firefighters in their work. They were able to keep that fire from burning any buildings, but soon it could become too much of a good thing. Deer Creek Canyon Park and the Rattlesnake Gulch and Black Bear Trails are still closed to give arson investigators room to do their thing. It's also allowing work to restabilize the areas where fire crews had to go in and cut hand lines and dig bulldozer lines, spots that could erode or slide if there's significant rain. So that work involves refilling soil back into those holes and diverting water from those areas. The people taking care of Deer Creek Canyon Park say they're not sure when it will reopen to the public, and to hikers, as of now, going in there could get somebody a ticket for trespassing. I have to thank you about your incredible generosity for the nonprofit Love for Lily in last week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. Between your one-time weekly donations and your monthly gifts to the Word of Thanks Fund, you raised more than $30,000 for that nonprofit that helps the parents of babies in NICUs across Colorado. Through 218 consecutive weeks of giving, you've raised more than $13 million to make a positive impact in our state. If you know of a nonprofit that is doing great work, please reach out to me and let me know. I read each and every email that you send to next@9news.com.
Yeah, I always say if there's something quirky, interesting, or fun that's going to happen on the Front Range, it's probably going to happen in Englewood.
Englewood better be watching out for Englewood. The city is taking itself to court, saying that's what needs to happen for their plan to raise property taxes to work. And a Coloradan who worked face-to-face with Joe Biden offers insight on his decision to leave the race and how she views his legacy. That's next. The city of Englewood just sued itself. Again, the city sued the city. City Council wants to ask voters for more in property taxes to better maintain parks. To get that on the ballot, Englewood City Clerk had to sue the city. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger explains.
This moment is brought to you by a city park, but it has been anything but a walk in the park for the city of Englewood in its attempt to ask voters for more money. The city wants to ask voters a bond question to improve parks. Maybe get rid of this slide that attracts heat. The city wants to enhance Pirates Cove Water Park and improve the Englewood Rec Center. The bond would raise property taxes about $28 for every $100,000 of your home's value. But because of the way the city charter is worded, the city had to sue itself to get the issue on the ballot.
I always say if there's something quirky, interesting, or fun that's going to happen on the Front Range, it's probably going to happen in Englewood.
Quirky and interesting took Englewood to court because the city charter said that general bond ballot measures could be the only question on the ballot.
Holding off on our issue wasn't an option.
Matt Crabtree is one of 5 residents who submitted petitions to get 2 other issues on the Englewood ballot. One about having voters directly elect the mayor, and the other ballot question is about filling council vacancies. Based on the city charter, if either one of those are on the ballot, the city cannot ask the bond question.
It was certainly not the intent, and nor were we aware of that process interfering with the city putting the bond on.
I'm not sure why it wasn't found earlier.
Englewood City Manager Sean Lewis said the city attorney realized the conflict, leading to the city's lawsuit against itself. And today, the judge ruled that all the ballot issues can happen at the same time. But it turns out 8 years ago, Englewood, under different leadership, asked voters a bond question to build this new police headquarters, while also asking residents to vote on a marijuana sales tax. The city did not sue itself to make sure that was okay, and the bond passed, allowing Englewood Police to have a new home.
We think that we are covered where that will not have to be undone.
It is too late for the city to put another issue on the ballot this year, asking voters to change the charter so they won't have to sue itself again, but that could happen even next year on the ballot. And Kyle, not to get lost in all this, Englewood, like some school districts, are asking voters for more property tax dollars at a time when the state legislature is about to have a special session to reduce property tax increases. The city manager told me it's a difficult time to ask voters for more property tax dollars, but it should be up to the voters to decide if that's what they want.
You know, every time you open up that ballot and it's a fat stack, you think, you know, this participatory democracy thing has its perks in Colorado, but at some point it's exhausting running everything ourselves. We should really hire some people to do it. Marshall Zellinger, thanks.
I think first and foremost in his mind was the need to defeat Donald Trump because he thought that would be bad for the country.
A Coloradan who worked directly with President Biden reflects on his decision to drop his re-election campaign, and we'll discuss whether it's smart to ask anyone that age to do that job. That's next. Welcome to Chicago, home of this year's Democratic National Convention. These National Party conventions are often heavy on the celebration and fairly light on the actual news being made. But this year, Democrats are going to do something unprecedented in American history, trying to pull off a campaign swap out of a losing candidate, a sitting president no less. So that's why we made the decision to be here in person to talk to the Coloradans who are a part of this history. Some of those Coloradans played key roles in pushing Biden toward the exit. And Coloradans at home will be closely watching as Vice President Kamala Harris rolls out her agenda after becoming the party's nominee, where she'll continue President Biden's policies, where she'll go in a new direction, where she will stick with her prior positions, and where she will suddenly change her views. All of that deserves extra scrutiny. So we'll do that, in part through our continuing series, The Stakes for Colorado, in-depth looks at how both parties' policies will impact Coloradans on issues like immigration, the economy, the environment, crime and justice, and Coloradans' rights. You're welcome to take a look at our 5-part series on Donald Trump's policies that aired along with our daily coverage of the Republican National Convention. And as always, we welcome your direct feedback about what is being discussed and what isn't being discussed. Email next@9news.com so your thoughts can guide our coverage here from Chicago and clear through election night. So this is Joe Biden's night at the DNC. It is certainly not what he planned. Our next conversation tonight is with a Coloradan who knows Joe Biden personally and worked with him closely. Denise Maez ran then Vice President Joe Biden's office. She handled his schedules and travel and office budget. She came home to Colorado to work for the ACLU before President Biden appointed her to lead this region of the General Services Administration. We began our conversation with Biden's decision to drop his re-election campaign. What did you see reflected of the man you know in his decision?
I think just that. I think one of his true qualities of being a leader is his selflessness and his love of country. And I think that is clearly on display at this moment. Now, I do think that the reason why it didn't happen sooner is I think first and foremost in his mind was the need to defeat Donald Trump because he thought that would be bad for the country.
Is he not also kind of a stubborn guy?
I don't know. I mean, I think when given the right data and the right information, and he asks all the right questions and gets the right answers, or good answers, I should say, then I think he's willing to take a good look at that, and I think that's what he did here. But, you know, sure, a lot of us can look back and revisionist history and think it would have been great to have happened sooner, but it happened when it did.
As somebody who managed the schedule for a vice president, you know the demands on a vice president or a president's time, on their body, on their mind. Is it a bit wild that we're even talking about having 80-somethings do this job?
Yeah, I think so, and I don't... You know, there's something to be said also for the 80-year-old with a great deal of experience and a long resume and being well regarded all over the world. And so, and that's something you can only accomplish with time, experience, and therefore age.
How much of his legacy is set in stone now, and how much will be determined by whether Kamala Harris wins, whether the economy has a soft landing from inflation, what happens with Ukraine and Russia?
And Israel and
Sure.
Palestine as well. I think there are so many good things about what he has done as president and also as vice president. I think we can't forget that, the important role he played, given his many, many years of experience in the Senate and knowing all of those senators and being able to bring the Recovery Act and things like that he did while vice president. And so I think there's so many chapters to his book of legacy, and I hope that we, you know, I certainly would never blame him in any way, shape, or form for whatever happens in this election. It is going to be what it's going to be, and I know that Vice President Harris is going to work darn hard, and so is President Biden, and all of the Democrats are going to work hard to make sure she prevails, and it's her destiny to write, and I think it'll be a good one.
You can find my full next conversation with Denise Maez on the Next YouTube channel and on 9news.com. There we get into the Joe Biden that she knew behind closed doors, as a boss and as a decision maker. As country star Mickey Guyton performs for Democrats here in Chicago. We are back with your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today, humans changing their plans as a bear just went about its business on the south side of town. So around 8 this morning, black bear was spotted near an elementary school in Littleton, so kids had to spend their morning indoors. By afternoon, that bear had strolled over to Lone Tree, where it was posted up at Park Meadows Mall, and shoppers had to divert around the area while parks workers tranquilized the bear and then waited for it to fall asleep. They were finally able to get it down around 3 this afternoon. It has been taken somewhere farther from town with the hopes that it won't come back, for everyone's sake. We finish with your feedback as always, and Jan on Threads says maybe you'll score an interview with Kamala Harris. Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty unlikely, Jan. I'm not sure if you've seen the news lately, but she's not doing a whole lot of interviews, and in fact her supporters get awfully touchy when reporters talk about that fact. Now, some of that's to be expected, right? She's ramping up this campaign in short order, has to get through this convention. Her team has been saying that she'll be doing an interview after this. I imagine one interview is probably not going to answer all of the questions out there. We, of course, would welcome Kamala Harris to speak with 9 News, and next, just as we would welcome Donald Trump to speak with 9 News. He did interview with 9 News during his first run for the presidency. Joe Biden has not spoken with 9 News during his time as a candidate or while in office. Perhaps that'll change with the Harris-Walz ticket in the future. We'll keep asking, and I'll see you next time.